You don't get what you need, you get who you're being. And if what you get in this world is who you're being, then who you're being is the most valuable thing you can cultivate, and then your business.
If you're full power and full brakes, you know how fast I was going? Full power, full brakes, 0. I was not going at all because I was full brakes, and that's like negative emotions.
Real estate to me is a vehicle about being able to provide or live a life of passion and purpose. And that passion and purpose comes from inside, and real estate is the tool. And whether you're using real estate itself or whether you're doing loans against real estate, those tools help you progress in being able to truly have safety, security, and fulfillment. That to me is why you own this stuff.
There is this disconnect between 4 different disciplines, between your financial advisor, your realtor, your tax professional, and then the lender. There's a space like right in the middle that nobody owns. People just get stuck there. And when people get stuck, they do nothing. 90% of our sorrow comes from relationships with the wrong people. I also think 90% of our stress comes from worrying about things we have no control over. I do think something happened in life where we're simply supposed to learn from, and we have to go through them.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter.
I've gotten in the habit of every time I hear something that's meaningful or powerful or really resonates with me, I'll stop what I'm doing and put it in the notes section of my iPhone. I call it like my insights journal.
Sure.
So, and I've done this now for many, many years. And so then about, I don't know, maybe at least once a week on a kind of a minimal level, I have a process I go through called the General's Tent, which is sort of a recap of the week, looking back, looking forward, helps me like organize my thoughts. But it's amazing now. I can go back and read through years in the Insights Journal of just what grabbed me. Could have been something I'm reading, could have been a podcast, video, wherever. Mm-hmm. And I'll read you a couple of just from this morning, from some quiet time this morning. The most powerful asset you have is your mind. A mind trained can create an enormous fortune. The rich educate themselves while the poor entertain themselves. Yeah. It's always better to find clients than look for bosses. Rich people have large libraries, poor people have large TVs, right? And so some of this, we've heard before, but my point is this is from this morning that I wanted to get out of wherever and into this, and then I can scroll through and it just gives me really good things to keep my mind in a healthy place at all times. Also things like I can share with my kids, I can share with clients, whatever the case may be. But that's helped me as a system be able to, not have things just flow and disappear, but kind of capture the gems and be able to spend some time saturating them. I'm a little bit of a crock pot, and then bring some of them back at the right time, at the right place.
No, I love it. I'm gonna. For those of you guys who've already tuned in and already listening, so this is Christina Suter with Real Estate Breakthrough. I'm with Mike Hardy with Ethos Lending. But one of the things that you're going to hear today, and what we're really going to focus on, is how your mindset and who you are makes a difference in your business model, whether it's lending or professionally investing in real estate or consulting, or being able to continue to teach, as Mike has moved into, which is teaching mindset skills. It really makes a huge difference. To borrow a saying from, I just finished Insight 1. I love the Insight series. I love the Landmark series. I've done University of Santa Monica. I've studied a whole variety of things. There are many good personal growth workshops out there. LifeSpring is again, one of them I hear is still around. There's some other leadership ones as well that maybe Mike has also as recommendations. But you don't get what you need, you get who you're being. And if what you get in this world is who you're being, then who you're being is the most valuable thing you can cultivate, and then your business, right? Because so many people focus on cultivating their marketing versus cultivating on who they're being, even if they're not poor, quote unquote, like what you just went through and all those statements, which is accurate as well. There are many people who have the assumption that cultivating who you're being is not necessary, not cool, not required, not going to bring any value. And yet, I think Mike and I have a very, very different opinion on that. So cultivating who you're being is what I spend the first half an hour, at least in the morning, spending time on. So Mike, why don't you bring us up to speed on what you experience about who you're being, why it's important, and then we'll get into this direct tips, tricks, conversations about how you do that and how it affects your business.
Sure. No, absolutely. I'm Well, a couple things come to mind. I have this, let's just call it eternal curiosity and passion for adventure and for life, and that weaves through everything, through business, through whatever. Life is this great adventure and this great journey. And so, a little bit of my philosophy is if you look at some context and perspective, if we look at like the total population on the earth, which is roughly 8.2 billion people, and then if you look at the let's call it the total number of folks that have ever walked the face of this earth according to recorded history as we know it, which is, when I looked into it, it was about 115 billion. That the fascinating part to me is that the possibility of one human soul will never be found in another. Okay, so everybody is distinctly unique and has very unique gifts, talents, passions, experiences aligned with skills that can merge into something beautiful and amazing. And so my thinking is always, how do I always look for what is unique in me and what is unique in anybody else I meet, to that can then be, refined and brought to life in a sense. And so I also believe, and you just mentioned this earlier, that like our outside is always a trailing reflection of our inside over time. And so to me, it's going to be, how do I manage my kind of, I call it the core four, but the body, being, balance, and business. And so, it's the physical, the mental, the emotional, and I think the outside always is going to be a combination of the inner game. The physical game is going to then manifest itself in every other area of life that people see on the outside, kind of like the iceberg principle. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, that's always been just sort of something that I've accepted as a truth for many, many years. And so part of my journey is to always make sure that I'm winning the inner game, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense to me, because I mean, if I want to, as a friend of mine always say, get stuff done. Actually, we use a slightly different word for the S, but I'm not going to say that here. I just want to get S done. It really is my mindset, my willingness, my momentum, which is the thing that creates that. And if that is happenstantial, then I don't have control. I don't have... it's like having a car that's got a gas problem. I just don't have the capacity. Like, is my car working today, or is it not working today? Can I get myself to my speaking engagement today, or is my car out of gas? And if I'm not controlling me, the mechanism, that which is the thing that creates and that which is the momentum, it becomes happenstantial. And now you're dealing with 50% of your problem is just, I'm not there, and I'm not capable of being there. And if I actually choose to have responsibility over my thinking, over my state of mind, over my diet, over my sleep, over my spiritual practices, over, just even a simple practice of gratitude, if I don't choose to have control over that, I'm actually choosing to not have control how I create momentum in my world. Just a thought.
Part of my morning routine is I will literally say out loud as I get started on it, I will say, I am responsible. Yeah. I am responsible. I am responsible. 3 times, sometimes more, but minimum 3 times. And it immediately helps me never start to, just call it maybe out of alignment, steer into victim mentality. Yeah. And all of a sudden I bring it back. Okay, if I'm 100% responsible for who I am, where I'm going, then just by cutting that off, I have to get to work mentally, and I'm taking ownership to start to solve whatever the issue is that's in front of me that I have to solve. And I think it's so easy as human beings to drift and to take a victim mentality. So that's my little life hack to every single morning start the day out in a way where I know, like, okay, it's on me, and you know what? We're going to make a way, or we're going to find a way.
Yeah. Make a way or find a way. Like I said, I did Insight years and years and years ago, and I just retook Insight 1. And create, promote, and allow. It's one of the concepts that they talk about in there. So if you want to take accountability, did I create it? Did I promote it? Did I allow it? Because there's always a level of responsibility in almost everything. Like, gee, I'm in a bar and somebody, a fight started and they took a swing and I got nailed and now I'm a victim. I'm a victim of these other two people's decisions. It's like, well, you kind of hung out in the bar, dude. Like, you could have walked out, right? That's a definite space of allowing something to occur in your world. And a lot of us in psychology, they call that like boundaries, right? Have you created your boundaries? And the boundaries go all the way down to, what am I allowing to have happen? How am I not speaking up for myself? How am I not speaking up for my client? How am I not stepping forward? How am I, the knots I'm doing? Because we have a tendency not to take responsibility for our knots. At least for me, getting all the way down to the allow is my part of my way of taking accountability for almost every situation. Or I'm upset because, as soon as I say I'm upset because, I'm like, oh man, right? I want to say it's out there. They're to blame. I'm upset because they did it to me. It's like, oh no, I can't. If you go down that path, you're allowing yourself to be unempowered. You're allowing yourself to be reactive. You're allowing yourself, right, to let the part of your reptile brain be the thing that's going to run your next 3 seconds to 30 minutes to 3 months of your life, depending upon how it affects you, right? Versus saying, no, I'm actually going to choose I am responsible. And what does that mean? What does I am responsible look like? Does that fit?
It does. And it's interesting. You made me think of something my daughter sent to me. I've got 4 kids, and she's my second, my favorite daughter. I call it three boys. And she said,
you can't say favorite daughter on a podcast, but if you have 3 boys, then that makes sense.
Right,
Okay, go ahead.
So she's my favorite daughter by far. It's not even close. I tell her that all the time. So she says, "You're my favorite dad." So that's good.
That's good.
So, but she asked me, she's a senior up at University of Oregon. And she sent me a text. She goes, "How much of your life do you think you have control over? What percentage of your life's enjoyment do you attribute to your own choice versus circumstances?"
Yeah.
Like, oh, that is a good question for, a 21-year-old. Yeah. And so, I thought about it. I said, I'm going to have to think about this to give you a, good answer. So I thought about it and sent her a fairly lengthy reply, later in the day or the next day. And I don't know if I'll read it all for you, but I'll just give you like the first, maybe a little glimpse in it. But so, you think about it, first of all, it's a really profound question for a senior in college to be asking. It goes to the heart of that issue that you were just bringing up, which is like, okay, we have the ability do we have the ability to control? And that's a complicated answer. Mm-hmm. And then, but can we curate and can we increase probabilities of, a dramatically better outcome based on a combination of things? So I'll just start it. You stop me anytime, but I'll just start the first part of it. But I said, Hannah, this is such a great question. I'm going to take a few minutes to just think out loud and answer you. First of all, I think there are things in your life that you have direct control over, things you have some influence over, and things you have no control or influence over. As a general rule of thumb, I tend to spend about 80% of my time on things I have direct control over, and 20% on things I have meaningful influence over, and less than 1% on things that I have no control and no influence over. I think something interesting happens when we become intentional about where we spend our time, who we spend our time with. The things in our life that are outside of our control tend to play a much smaller factor. By controlling our day, our structure, our mind, what we put into our mind, and how we fill our time, we create an environment that gives us additional peace and additional control while eliminating a lot of the wild variables, to your point earlier.
Yeah.
There's a saying I like, 90% of our sorrow comes from relationships with the wrong people. Mm-hmm. I also think 90% of our stress comes from worrying about things we have no control over. I do think some things happen in life where we're simply supposed to learn from, and we have to go through them. We can either go through them with the highest level of anxiety and stress and worry, or we can say, okay, I'm going to hit this head on, to be the buffalo, which I've talked to you about in the past. Another saying, if you're going through hell, keep going. Don't stop. Don't slow down. Learn what you need to learn and press your way through. If it feels overwhelming, sometimes all you can do is take one step at a time or one day at a time. Sometimes all we can do is the next right thing. There's a story about a kid walking through the forest with his dad, and the kid says, I don't know how to get all the way through the forest. And the dad says, do you know where the next step is? The kid says, yes. The dad says, then just worry about that one. So anyway, it's quite a bit longer, but I thought I would at least share the opening because, there's nothing new under the sun. And it's kind of funny how the same questions are being asked, whether you're in high school, graduating from college, or well through a career and still trying to figure out what's next. It's almost like these same internal challenges and emotions they're innate to us as human beings. And I think the more that we can wrap our arms around winning that inner game, the better off we're going to do. There's a ripple effect.
I think that's a very good description. I really do. And I love you reading through all of that, because that is a profound question I think many people ask all the time. Like, really, where is my locus of control? And we've tried to describe, I think, more the positive side of it, like create, promote, and allow, or I am responsible, or, you talk about, extreme accountability. Navy SEAL wrote the book. I can't remember. Jocko.
Oh, David Goggins.
Oh, there's that one too. David Goggins and Jocko.
Jocko.
Both good books. But I guess, or both good people offering thoughts. But I guess one of the things you brought up in the text, which I think is also equally important, the other side of what we've just talked about, to me, is called humility, right? Accepting the things I cannot change. So there's,
Right.
In Al-Anon, there's and I think maybe AA, having the wisdom to know what I can change and accepting what I cannot change. Right? Because that wisdom is also part of peace and part of humility. So let's talk about that other side. Like, I've had stuff go wrong. Obviously, I've been investing for 40 years. Like, stuff goes wrong. I've noticed. Even if I'm taking 100% accountability for my decision to lower that ceiling by 3 inches, and therefore my project ran negative and ran way over budget and time, because I lowered a ceiling by 3 inches in the entire first floor. I did that. Okay, right. It was my decision, right? So, but then there's humility, right? Like, so what do we do with relationship to? For me, this is how I think about it, but I'd love to hear how you think about it. I am one individual being. There's nobody like me, like you talked about before, but I am also one being in 8 billion different bodies that are moving on this planet, right? And if I think I'm going to control 8 billion, that's not going to happen. I can potentially affect 8 billion. That might happen if I choose to, if I want to, and I'm willing to put that much momentum into it, which I may not choose to want to or put that much momentum into it. But there's a humility of, yeah, this just happened. And maybe I'm not directly accountable for it, but it just happened, so now what? And then for me, there's a humility that has to show up. That is, like, the momentum is me pushing forward. Humility is me in acceptance. And to me, it's a constant balance between, for me, inside of me, I'm creating momentum, something occurs, and now I need to be in humility or acceptance, and then I need to step back into momentum again. Because some people are like, oh man, that thing happened and now that's it. I'm not doing any momentum anymore. I'm not gonna create anymore. I'm not gonna da-da-da anymore. I'm not gonna da-da-da anymore, right? They create that I'm never going to again statement, right? Versus maybe choosing humility or choosing forgiveness or choosing gratitude or choosing whatever you choose to be able to accept that which is. But it can be very humbling before you can create momentum again, right? That's why I call it humility, like it's humbling, right? So go ahead, talk to me, Mike.
Sure. There's you think of where to start on this. The thought process here is that I remember reading this years ago, that it's physiologically impossible to hold both simultaneously a positive emotion and a negative emotion. It's impossible. You have to be in one camp or the other.
The brain chemistry doesn't allow it.
It doesn't allow it. And so we default to the negative emotions. And so there has to, almost like, consider like a out of alignment car you're driving. It's just, you default to negative emotions. And so you have to, figure out how to fix that. There's an analogy that comes to mind. I'm working on my pilot's license right now. And so I'm student pilot. So early stages, like I'm just soloed. I can solo the pattern in the practice area, but my instructor is teaching me about a short field takeoff where, you have to go to, taxi to the end of the runway. And then you go to the very end of the runway because we need to get off the ground sooner to clear, debris or trees or whatever, simulating it. And so we go to the very end of the runway, and at the same time, we're full brakes and full power. in order to launch a little bit and be able to then at 60 take lift, and we're going to have to accelerate our climb more than normal to clear the trees. But I think what's interesting is that this is what came to mind after reflecting on the flight, is that if you're full power and full brakes, you know how fast I was going, full power, full brakes, 0. I was not going at all because I was full brakes. And that's like negative emotions, regardless of where they are on the negative emotion tree. And so, then afterwards, let go, cleared it and did the pattern. But the aha moment for me was like, how much of my life am I spending, whether it's full power and full brakes, or whether it's partial brakes? And if you have partial brakes at all, you're never going to get fast enough to be able to get any lift. I'm like, that is a really good analogy for life. And it doesn't matter where it is on that, that negative emotion scale or tree. If I don't do a healthy checkup of, do I have negative emotions floating around, no matter what I do, no matter how hard I work, whether it's partial power, full power, I will not get anywhere close to what is possible. Mm-hmm. So then it begs the question, well, how do I get into a place of systematically removing negative emotions? Mm-hmm. And, one of the, I mentioned this earlier as we were first talking, I think before, but there's this process I'll go through every week, which is called the General's Tent. And the General's Tent process, it comes from a couple of different places, but I think it mainly comes through like the book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And the saying in there is like, the battle is won in the general's tent long before the battle is joined. And, where you make the micro course corrections to be able to move. But I have this process I go through, and, it's a handful of questions that I'll answer. I'll physically write it out like each week. It takes about 45 minutes for me on a Sunday when I do this. But one of the questions is, it's like, is there anybody that I need to forgive? Is there? And so it's basically taking the time to reflect and look, what is there anxiety? What am I, what is a stress I have? What's an anxiety? And I've noticed for me personally as a very, let's call it tactical outcome to address that, which you brought up earlier, which is I will write it out to get it out of my head. I've noticed for me that I have this journal I carry around everywhere with me. Each day has like, a new, today we're just getting started. Yesterday was a busy one, right? But it's like, that's every single day. And I've noticed that, part of my exercise is I'm going to write a win. I'm going to write a stress. I'm going to write something I'm grateful for. So for me, that is one path that typically identifies what the key stress is, and then move it to a place of gratitude as the last step. And I've noticed, not always, but way more often than not, that's a path that will help me like let go of, full gas, full brakes. All of a sudden now I can be off the brakes and get lift again.
That's a really good description. And I like the general's tent conversation as well. Do you have anything out of that process you do once a week that maybe you can share with us as well, so that people can maybe take some skills?
Sure. Yeah. So, okay. So there's a couple things. In fact, I'll just pull it up while we're talking about, so I can kind of cover some recent things. But it's 10 different questions I go through, and then there's also like I want to also ask and identify what are my big rocks for the week, and then I also have a category called who not how. Like we're also like wired to me in particular. It's like, how do I do it? So finally, I read the book Who Not How like a number of years ago, and so every single thing that's there now, there's a question of, is there a who that can be here instead of the how? And then also I have a saying, in order to elevate, I need to automate, delegate, or eliminate if I'm going to elevate. So then it's like, what can I automate? What can I delegate? And what can I eliminate, along with the who, not how? So that's part of the General's Tent process, is to like every week think through that. And I find myself like listing this whole series of things that need to get done. And then I start to put names by them. And then, part of it goes to the buy back your time concept. It's like, okay, well, we all can figure out hourly rate and how much of my mind clutter is stuck on things that if it were free, I could be able to, build and grow. So that's part of the process, is to just it ends up, rarely do I miss. So let's just say 50 times a year instead of 52 holidays, et cetera. So 50 times a year now, I'm course correcting. I am being intentional about delegating. I'm going through a couple questions that will help me unlock some of like okay, maybe I'm full gas, but I'm also full brake or even partial brake. Get rid of that. So that's the general ascent process. It's about, if I do it quickly, it's about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, maybe 30. And if, sometimes I got a lot to work through, it might be an hour.
So I know you've been moving into teaching this stuff or speaking on this stuff. Like this has become you've been studying it obviously for some time, but now you're being maybe more willing to be verbal about it and to be seen, right, as an instructor in this area. So are you actually teaching courses right now, or is it more people need to find you speaking somewhere?
It's funny. I just got the domain MikeHardySpeaker.com. There's nothing there yet. I secured it a couple days ago.
Good.
Instagram handle, and so I'm starting to put a lot of structure behind it. It's happened, I would say, somewhat organically, but just like we were talking about before, when there's a saying I like, which is, I think it's out of Proverbs, your gift will make room for you. It will bring you before, great kings or whatever it is. I can't remember it specifically, but I think that's one of the beauty of life is that as long as we continue to put ourselves out there a little bit, the world sees value and starts to want it and request it. And so from, taking some time to okay, I'm going to test this. I'm going to share some things that I do, and I start sharing and it really, really resonates. It's okay, there's something here. So it's not something that is will I monetize it? Maybe a little bit. It's not even the point of that. It's compared to the real estate and mortgage world, it was probably going to be a net cost to do it. I just love it. So I'm going to, continue to develop it and, maybe turn it into something special. That's the plan.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And then I do want to switch it just a little bit because a lot of people listening to this are either in real estate or they're in lending or they're in real estate and they need a loan. So let's talk a little bit just for a moment about how you feel like it affects you, but also affects your clients. Because I know that Ethos Lending has this very specific, I love that I have to tell the story. So how I met Mike was that we were at a workshop together, but not together as in we arrived together in any way, shape, or form. I just saw this dude with this hat on, and he has the same hat on. Show the hat. It's right there. You've been playing with it the whole time. And I went, whatever he's doing is going to be cool, because the only people I know who really understand the ethos, what it is, I don't even know the right term. What does ethos mean? What's the right definition of ethos? You probably know it because it's your company.
I had no idea. It comes from it's Greek in nature, and so the thought process. A lot of this just has to do with overall healthy communication for folks. Ethos, pathos, logos, and then chronos. Ethos is the character and the substance of an individual. That's the ethos. The pathos is the chemistry and the connection, the care factor. That's pathos. And then the logos is the logic or wisdom of the value proposition of whatever your product or service is. And then chronos is a relevant time frame for the individual. So if business is not flowing as it should, typically, consciously or subconsciously, a client, one of those four is not adding up. It's not the right time. There's not value perceived. Maybe there's value given, but there's not value perceived with your product or service. There's not a connection. There's not a level of depth to relationship, or there's a lack of, what we call the guts just telling you not to do it. I just heard, I need to get this in my insights journal. I just heard this and I saved it to go back and record it, but it had to do with something with the amount of, I could have sworn it was it the DNA strands specifically that are in your gut? And it had something to do with, the concept of listen to your gut and the amount, I need to find it. I'm sort of botching the explanation, but there's something physiologically and scientifically specific to the gut where you say, listen to your gut. Why would someone ever say that has to do with the level of neurons and feel that comes from it. I'll get back on that sidebar. But the ethos is the character, the substance, the wisdom of an individual, wisdom, not from like the logic side, but just like the collective, can I trust this person? And so ethos, pathos, logos, chronos. And so that's the behind the scenes for ethos. A long answer to your short question.
No, it's valuable, and it fits inside the box that we've really been talking about, which is how mindset affects business and how it affects your success. And so when I saw this hat and I saw this dude standing there, I went, he's got a story. He's going to be cool in some way, shape, or form. So I said, hey, I mean, it's just random. I like literally walked up and said, hi, you don't know me. I want to talk to you. like literally, like, I did maybe even said, I want to invite you to I want to have a phone call with you. I think literally, and then like, it took us like a month or two to even arrange the phone call before we were like, oh, hey, we actually do have similar thinking. And so it was just literally the hat. And then the follow up on, there must be a story there that is valuable. So tell us about how all that, the ethos, pathos, chronos, how that affects your business. Like, this is who you guys are, and you have developed and taken the time to integrate into your business this thinking.
Sure. So let's see how to where to start on this. So I, early part of my career, my formal training is as a financial advisor. So that was my sort of launch into the real world, so to speak. And had a really, really good mentor, high net worth money manager. And so I was able to, at an early age, get some great perspective between my dad, who's really my hero, and he's extremely successful, PhD, MBA, I mean, like just very accomplished. And then, some other mentors, including the individual that owned the firm that I work with. Along the way, I noticed, I had a friend of mine that was in the mortgage business, and it was really interesting because he wasn't really a business guy, like great with people, but not a business guy. And so he was, involved in very high level financial decisions for people that have a dramatic material outcome. And I realized that there was what I call like a blue ocean opportunity to be able to, in the world of, at that time, residential lending, bring a very high level of advice and guidance and a quote financial planning approach. And so made the transition. Like I had to give up my Series 7 because I got too much outside business activity. It wasn't technically selling away, but I had to move from the financial planning world and all that licensing and pick a path at some point, never look back. And so the entire group and my philosophy for the last 20 years has been to have a holistic financial planning approach to the world of real estate and residential lending. And that's moved into some other things I'll talk about in a minute that are much more, advanced. But I've noticed that there is this disconnect between 4 different disciplines, between your financial advisor, your realtor, your tax professional, and then the lender. There's a space like right in the middle that nobody owns. And it, like, people just get stuck there. And when people get stuck, they do nothing. And so I've made it a point for the last 20 years to not just handle the loans, but to have a planning and strategy and a consultation piece to our business that helps people just figure out and answer some of the basic questions so that they can move forward with confidence. And so, that's part of the, that's part of the, let's call it underpinning of our group, is to just bring solid advice to the world of residential lending. Doesn't matter if it's like, we got a great team and we do a lot of business, but it doesn't matter if it's a first-time buyer or a super sophisticated, high net worth individual that needs to do a reverse 1031 exchange and figure out bridge financing and, has an EAT owned replacement property. Like, just, I don't care how complex it is. If it's residential and we're going to go a few steps beyond what every other lender does that I'm aware of to bring advice and strategy and bigger thinking. And I've noticed over time that the bottom line net improvement to folks by helping them stay efficient with debt or make good decisions is a very, very big number over the course of a career.
So well described. And like you said, there's this spot in the middle where there's, there are agents, real estate agents who want to sell you buildings because that's what they know. but that isn't necessarily the best financial decision for that portfolio or for that individual as a whole, given all the things that they're holding and what their long-term goals and vision are, which would be a financial planner, right? Also given the tax consequences behind some of those decisions. So when you talk about this hole in the middle, I very much have noticed that as well. And I love that you because of your background, have gone like, no, we can help this bridge. Like we can help this and make this happen. Even though you're a lender and not necessarily an agent, right? You still be able to bring that thinking to, does this really serve you? Is this the right type of debt? Are you leveraged correctly in this particular property and given your portfolio as a whole? Because there really is like, I know I have a leverage point I want on my portfolio as a whole and not necessarily just with each individual property, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
both of those are questions that you want as an investor. Go ahead.
Yeah, in fact, just before our call, we were, myself and my partner and our business manager, we were on with a financial planning firm that had, I think there was, I don't know, 6, 7, maybe 8 folks on the call. And we were talking about specifically this, like how do, I noticed financial advisors, and I know that in my formal training, we're not trained to understand the world of real estate. And if you look at, here's the crazy part, like if you look at the collective total market cap for U.S. residential real estate, I'm going to talk about a real significant problem that exists and a way that we're solving it in this marketplace. Total market cap is about $50 trillion of U.S. residential real estate. Total debt, residential debt is, I think, 13 and a half, maybe 14 trillion. Then there's, credit cards, student loans, et cetera. All that kind of comes up to about 19. Of all of that equity, that $35 trillion of equity in residential real estate, about 20 trillion of it is owned / controlled by folks that are 55 and older. There's such a shift taking place. I mean, we all know this. There's a generational shift and a wealth transfer that's the world has never seen that's rolling through right now. But what the point I was bringing up is that so much of that is not, let's call it, well managed. And nothing against financial advisors. It's just not their space. They manage the assets. They help with the insurance. They help with the planning, some estate planning. So the thought process, though, if you, like, I've actually built this out, I'll roll it out soon, but I've built out a real estate, an asset performance score where somebody can plug in any of their assets and actually see what their return on equity is. Okay. And I'm sure you know all this stuff, but it's like, okay, got a residential property. It's worth, $1 million. They bought it for 200,000. Maybe there's a little debt, maybe none on at this point. Would you buy that property again today for that cash flow? Well, no, of course not. But they're sitting on it. Why? It's like their return on equity is like 1.5%, 2%, 2.5% best case. Yeah. So one of the things that we'll do is we'll look at is there a better path? And I can get into all the strategies there, but how you're maybe thinking, like, as a residential lender, like how is that relevant? Well, there's so many good loan programs that people are not aware of. They're not aware of if you're not a traditional W-2 person, business, that we call them like the 4 R's, retirement only income. Okay. Revenue only income for business owners, rental income only for investors, reserves only for folks that have assets, but not traditional income. How's that tie to this scenario? Well, Delaware statutory trust is a phenomenal option for somebody, but most people don't want to take their entire property in their backyard of $1 million and move it over somewhere for an income stream. So you know what we're doing? We call it pre-planned liquidity. Okay. We will looked into the guidelines, talk to tax counsel. We'll take a small amount of leverage against a property that will help somebody reallocate, rebalance their portfolio. Maybe they have $1 million. They'll take out 400,000 or 500,000. We don't want to go over 50 because you need to place it. Okay. Carry that, debt service it. You'll like this. If you debt service something that's in the high 6s and you put it in short-term treasuries, you're going to be getting in the high 3s. Your net cost is actually sub 3% on that interest for 6 months. Okay. So there's a little bit of cost there. It's not free, but it's way less than the tax. Now you can bank 500,000, move it into whatever is going to be the best business purpose. You need to invest it. It can't be personal use. And then move the remaining $500,000 into a DST as one example. There's lots of different paths to go that are still, exchange strategy tax deferred. And no one's doing this.
No.
Like no one's doing this. And it's a strategy right in front of everybody. So we're starting to do education on things like this. You're asking like how this ties together. This is a space where financial planners, okay, folks that are in real estate, we're the lending piece. And I've talked to a good handful of folks recently that have lots of single family residences, and they feel like they're stuck, and they don't know that they could turn about half of that into liquidity to be actively managed and invested, and then turn the remainder into a passive income stream called 5.5% if you want to be super passive. So that's one example of like things that we do and talk through that the marketplace is just not doing at all.
No, they're not spending time on that. And and it is amazing how the lending piece can be so informed by the portfolio as a whole. And then once you look at the portfolio that way, it really informs them, the investor, on a whole new mindset on how to manage the portfolio as a whole and their position as a whole, generally towards a long-term plan of stability and being able to really feel like they know why their portfolio will continue to perform for them year upon year upon year.
Right. And the whole goal is to be able to, so many people I see there's in that category, they're way overweighted in real estate. And there's a way to re-weight that without having a tax trigger.
Taxes. Yeah, absolutely. And lending is honestly, in my opinion, the most efficient way to do that. I'm just saying. There are other ways to do it, but lending is the most efficient way to just reallocate tax-free.
It's something that needs to be looked at. I think there's this misnomer that you get a loan and then you're like stuck forever. And the reality is there's so many programs now that are in between. Mm-hmm. There used to be this world where you get your traditional, your W-2, your conforming Fannie Freddie. And then, outside of that, it was really complicated. You had private money. And now, of course, there's a non-QM world. But what I've noticed, especially in the last 18 months, is there's a significant, the thinking is that like water seeks the lowest level. Okay. So Wall Street money, investors, is realizing that there's a way to get a very fair, safe risk reward return for what would have been considered way out of the box just a couple years ago. And so that money is finding its way into the marketplace and is available for investors that know it rarely is this going to be through like a traditional bank because it's just not their business. But there's great programs with very competitive rates, sometimes the same, sometimes just a little bit higher than whatever the best terms on the market, where you don't have to fit in the box and you can do strategies like this that we just talked about. That doesn't have to be like, Guido's private money group, to be able to get access to money.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I didn't even say Guido's private money group. I'm like, absolutely. Anyway, I hate to do this, but we are at time. So guys, you're obviously going to want to talk to Mike. He very clearly has a distinctive point of view, not just on lending and how to cultivate your business structure as a real estate professional on the level of portfolio, but also comes from a place inside of him that has to do with really personal growth and mindset. And so you might want to reach out to him for either one of those. Mike, how do people get a hold of you?
Yes, I actually I have a website, MikeHardyBio.com, and best email address, mike.hardy@ethoslending.com. I'm sure we'll drop it in the the information in there. And phone number, give a phone number too. 909-969-0959 is a good phone number for me.
Mike, thank you so much for playing with me. I love that we started with the mindset stuff because that is what is truly near and dear to my heart, and it's things I'm personally passionate about it. Real estate to me is a vehicle about being able to provide or live a life of passion and purpose. And that passion and purpose comes from inside, and real estate is the tool. And whether you're using real estate itself or whether you're doing loans against real estate, those tools help you progress in being able to truly have safety, security, and fulfillment. That, to me, is why you own this stuff. That is the reason why we participate and play in real estate. It's not just the asset itself. All right. Thank you, Mike. I so appreciate it. This is Christina Suter with Real Estate Breakthrough. Tune in 2 weeks for our next show.